Very good evening, everyone. Uh, my name is Udit Sakuja. I once again welcome all of you for our yet another very important 18th edition on GAPSULE. As you know, GAPSULE is first of an industry dialogue series aimed at bridging the knowledge gap between the pharmaceutical industry and medical practitioners for better treatment outcomes. Today, our topic of discussion is quite interesting, and it is majorly a fulcrum of any kind of pharmaceutical medical marketing, basically the future of scientific communication in pharmaceutical industry. Today, we have some very good experts from the industry who have been well groomed and have great experience and have seen some major trends in pharmaceutical industry scientific communication. And I would like to introduce all the respective panelists today. First is Dr. Nitin Malekar. I welcome Dr. Nitin Malekar for today's discussion. Dr. Nitin Malekar is a director in Harae Dx Early Cancer Detection Technology Organization. He has 3 decades of an experience in scientific writing and communication. He has an expertise in proactive scientific communications and digital communications publications. His specialty is repeated management and clinical research and growth strategies. He has been an expert in research and healthcare information dissemination, like in cancer, COVID 19 genetics, and vaccine, and an expert in establishing strategic and marketing tie ups. Thank you so much, Dr. Nitin, for joining us today for this important discussion. Our another panelist is Mr. Amaninder Dhillon. Uh, Welcome, Amaninder, for this important discussion today. Amaninder Dhillon is a pharma sales and marketing expert, have been in the industry for over 20 years, and have worked in major organizations like Abbott, Pfizer, GSK, Dr. Reddy's, Mitra, and AstraZeneca. Mr. Amninder owes his accomplishments to his aptitude for his comprehending individuals, business problems, customer insights, his practical experience in all areas of pharmaceutical sales and marketing and promotions enables to bring the table solid principles of marketing, leadership, and sales force excellence. Despite being evolved through experiential learnings, he has a graduation degree in pharmacy from Punjab University, an MBA from Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies. I welcome once again Mr. Amaninder for this important discussion.
Thank you.
Our
My pleasure.
last very important panelist is Mr. Amin Roy, General Manager at JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals Limited. Mr. Amin have 19 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry across various roles. That is sales, marketing, communication, L&D, BD strategy, quite extensively covering all major aspects in pharmaceutical aspects. He has been executive assistant to CEO, worked in companies like Wocar, Unicam, Cipla, and currently associated with JB Chemicals as a AVP Sales and Marketing. Once again, a very warm welcome, Mr. Amin Roy, for this very innovative and very important perspective on medical scientific communication in the future and even the current role. So, I once again welcome everyone for this very apt topic of today because the world has changed post the idea of identifying the right communication, right channel, and making sure that you are targeting right customer based on the psychocharacteristic behavior of a doctor, understanding the conceptualization, understanding the medical standpoint is really important. And with that, the first very important point which we would like to ask from Dr. Nitin, how, according to you, scientific communication has evolved from doctor centricity to patient centricity? Is it been an evolution or still we are as a status quo? Dr. Nitin.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this discussion, and I'm glad to be present here. I believe that patient centricity as a concept
Yeah.
puts the patient in the center of all the decision making which happens in the healthcare industry. So, including all stakeholders, we are talking about providers, that is the medicines, the pharmaceutical industry, technology providers, and the services, which are the medical and the supportive services, all together. And the patient sits at the center. It is an approach that provides patient with very important capabilities. Today's patient is Google enabled. He expects or he or she expects better healthcare outcomes, designing the right healthcare solution for this patient is the key role of the whole industry now. There is a
Correct.
shift from, there was a earlier, the the delivery, the delivery provider was the king. Now the customer is the king. The change from doctors centricity to patient centricity is primarily, I believe, it is driven by few aspects. One of the most important aspects, which as I told you, is knowledge availability and better access to the healthcare. So the patient community previously had a very limited access to the healthcare. Now the access is fantastic. It is COVID or post COVID, we have also learned digital uh,
Yeah.
access, which is so critical. So the second important aspect is every stakeholder now recognizes this need. They
Hmm.
recognize the need for consumers' participation in the healthcare decision-making process as a whole. So there is a definitive shift, and every healthcare stakeholder is enabling his capability, enabling their own capability to suit this change. So going forward, we will see an evolving ecosystem. That's what I can see, where the supportive foundations, the disease foundations, patient advocacy groups, health plans, I mean insurance, regulators, competitors, technology, wellness companies, all of them will come together around supporting patient. That's what I
Very,
believe is happening.
very aptly said, Dr. Nitin. But little bit straightforward. Yeah, Mr. Amin. So I was coming to you that what Dr. Nitin is trying to mention, the evolution. But if I see currently, apart from the specialty related disease areas where, yes, patient centricity is very important. But if I could talk about, let's say, mass marketing or marketing where we have kind of kind of marketing style, there's still the patient centricity has been not at that stage where actually required, because that's the first stage where if I'm trying to put right patient education, right patient awareness, the severity section can be cut down really into that. So, what is your point of view, Mr. Amin, on that? And anything would you add into it?
Sure. Good. See, I have two perspectives here. Once I would like to add upon further, what Dr. Nitin mentioned, and very happy to be here in between Mr. Dr. Nitin and Mr. Dhillon. Uh, the first point is, that in pharma, I think Udit, all marketeers, if they are listening today, they follow patient funnel. The
Right.
origination, awareness, diagnosis, then comes treatment choice.
Correct.
So in pharma marketing, the patient centricity was always at the foundation of anything. The only problem is that more of the resources were spent a lot on treatment choice or the brand
Brand choice.
communications rather
Yeah.
than patient communications or patient awareness or patient diagnosis, etc. I think those things were left for certain critical and crucial category. But any marketer or any company today who does a proper, sales and marketing, the foundation is always patient centricity, because your funnel starts from awareness,
Mm,
diagnosis, and then it comes to the treatment choice,
mm.
and then it follows forward. So that is always a case. The second scenario, what you just asked me right now, Udit, I think we see a lot of dilution because the Indian pharmaceutical industry is very fragmented. There are
True.
20,000 manufacturers. There are a lot of top Indian companies. Then you have a lot of multinationals. You have a lot of generic companies. Okay, and the mass of this is doing brand communications or brand reminders. Okay, but if you see all top companies or all successful companies, be it in acute categories or chronic categories, you will see a very solid balance of the patient centricity and doctor centricity. I'm sure that the resources are still on a higher side on the doctor communication and doctor awareness or brand communication. But however, slowly the shift is very rapid. If we see in last 10 years, and if you see the success what in India we have seen with some products around hypertension or asthma or diabetes,
True.
and recent the way the cancer is evolving in the country, I think a lot of focus is happening on patient centricity. I don't like giving COVID example a lot because I think it's good to forget that as a bad dream. But if you just see COVID, what happened? it was the other extreme. The patient centricity and the patient communication was at the pinnacle, and that was also creating a chaos because it was not reaching from the right platform, it was not reaching from the
Hmm.
right person to them. That created a lot of chaos. So I think a right balance is important. Talking directly to the patient can also create a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and instead of expanding adherence and compliance, that might land into creating unnecessary worry and problems amongst them. So very difficult to strike that balance, but yeah, I think most of the companies doing that today. We don't see it because mass is focusing
Hmm.
on the other side.
Exactly. Means because the most important part is post COVID, at least one thing has been easily identified. The patient, any normal public, normal layman population now understand the value of health. And whenever they see any kind of symptomatic or kind of any kind of disease perspective, they go into Google, they try to identify the solution, but that's not the right practice. So ultimately there are some certain gaps area which we have to identify. I think, Aminder, if you have, the important point is the industry which comes from. Specifically, you have been very much into the oncology part of the experience. There we have seen quite significant advancement, and in that specific, like, we see that breast cancer have been really changed, the picture has changed, the treatment scenario has been changed. How you see as a patient centricity has been evolved in Indian perspective?
Well, my introduction to patient centricity came a decade back when I was in GSK, and the
Yeah.
concept was patient focused selling. Now,
Right.
there was a time when you used to talk about the product, its merits, demerits, efficacy, and safety, and used to leave doctor guessing where to which patient he should use that product. But when you talk about patient focused selling, is that you first create a patient persona
Right.
based on different patient journeys, and then try to fit your product or ask question, doctor, where do you feel a product with XYZ characteristics fit in that patient persona and patient journey, and do you feel that my brand or my product is an optimal fit in that scenario? So that was the patient focused selling approach which was by GSK. And it comes because we were launching new products. But
Mhm.
now, more or less, most oncology companies, they start with, that if there is a patient which has gone a particular gene mutation, what do you think is the most optimal approach you will take? And do you feel that this particular drug which has a this action on this gene will ideal for those patients? So for super specialty, yes, patient focus and
Yeah.
centricity starts from patient persona and through different patient journeys. That this there is a lady who is a smoker or a non-smoker. She lives far off. She comes once in to a metro town, and then based on that persona, you try to say, okay, R is an oral drug, R has got this drug, and then so and so forth. You try to pitch your product, and that's how now most of the multinationals. And last, when I was in AstraZeneca, has given a compliance approval to hold patient ad boards or to get patient insights. And most of the brand plans now have a dedicated section where the marketer has to, tell what is this patient insights which he has, on which he is working, and based on that, what strategy is he made, and how does those levers, are able to, define which levers of marketing strategy he is going to use for a particular patient journey. Going further, yes, COVID has made everybody health conscious.
Right.
But at the same time, you will see that now the health information is coming in plain language. It is not very technical. Even doctors, even big journals have started coming up with their editions, which called as a plain language summary, because nobody has got time to actually put their brain and understand what is the depth in terms of the technicality this article or it's trying to
Mhm.
explain. Everybody wants the way we have our news, in 60 words, or Twitter we live in the way 250 words. If you're not able to explain, then you are not in the game. Another thing which I've seen now is post COVID is the use of digital and the social media awareness. I never seen Amitabh Bachchan coming on, and talking about shingles vaccines, or somebody talking about a cervical vaccines. There are Instagram reels which are happening. So awareness is actually going down, from social media, it's coming to general public. There
I
are
totally agree. Correct.
there are now companies which come with real life stories of patients. There are blogs which are written. And very subtly within that blog, they will try to put how that patient was able to overcome a challenge and which challenge only their product could do it. So there is a little bit of bias in those blogs, but real life
Correct.
stories, they are not actually real life stories. They are, somewhat scripted into it. But that's
Hmm.
how the companies are going on. And that the two things which I really liked was the recent one which I posted was on the Vistara campaign, where they made a yellow cards, and when the food was served, they talked about the information for a diabetic and patients. So there, the patient, now the entire pharma is now going shifting from doctor directly to patient centricity, where they're trying to give some kind of a risk benefit communication. They're trying to give some kind of awareness communications, and few of the companies have dedicated websites or apps which they have it in. And
Eh,
the latest one, which was there, that now Alchem has launched their ophthalmology range, where they have a QR codes which get scanned, and the information they get redirected in a regional language. So that's a next step of patient centricity, because in India we have so diverse population that now you have to communicate to them in a regional dialect. So
I
that's how I see the shift happening from doctors to patients.
totally echo Amaninder in that context. The kind of innovative ideas now pharmaceutical industry is working upon is really good. Not only in terms of specific and high severe kind of diseases, in general related diseases. Let's say if I talk about the bone health part also, though the magnitude, the pathway is not still the mature one, but the companies have started taking the risk point of view, because that is also an area where we have seen still uh, patients or the normal public doesn't know too much of it. So that's the beauty of it, that the patient centricity is something which is started coming in marketing, pharmaceutical marketing. That's a very positive sign thing. I think still a long way to go to streamline the things in terms of how the healthy part of it, the healthy knowledge, and it has to be very much wise enough that it should not talk about more about the brand endorsement. It should be more about the patient endorsement. That's very important. My
One
another
more
question
point,
is,
one
yeah.
more point before you move to next is also that more you become direct to the patient, or you are in the social media, more
Hmm.
transparent the communication has to be and authenticated has to be. And the good thing which I liked was that even now you have apps which are direct to
Mhm.
patient for patient assistance programs. So many
Correct.
companies, especially in super specialty, they have some value add services or schemes now which they are openly showcasing them in the public
Hmm.
domain. So patients can download the app and they
Correct.
can get those services directly via digital means.
So this is the next thing which is happening, though, in terms of communication aspect. You can see that digital therapeutics is the next way forward. All the companies have started working on it. It will not be just a app where a patient will have a absolute outlook in terms of what they have to have in terms of food or everything. It is dealing in terms of the how the disease is progressing, how you check that. So it's going to be a next way forward, which might be take time, but the way the companies are working very proactively and making sure that there should not be any kind of miscommunication or slip into it. Their fulcrum is requiring a lot of interventions and dipsticks, which is really much required in the current world, because we have seen in the COVID time, we have a flood of digital communication, but half of the things have been removed out because uh, the customer actually is not able to understand how I need to interpret, how I need to make an actionable of it. So things have been changed. There is a lot of insights coming out of it. But interestingly, yes, there is a way movement which is going on, and there are some of the places the systematic way or the right process has been institutionalized. That is very important. My second question is, as an industry experts, what is your experience in terms of scientific communication domain, from the angle of doctor and patient, the quality part of it? Let's say start with quality. How do you see that quality in per se that the customers, specifically the HCPs, perceive this important aspect quite a lot, though they don't react to it. But whenever you try to any kind of focus discussions or kind of advert, they always value that how your scientific communication has been designed, and what kind of important markings like you take care of. Are you also able to provide the side effect profiling, or just trying to show that I am very much better than anything else? So this kind of protocol, this kind of compliance point of view, these are very important for outcomes. So, as an industry experts, what is your experience in terms of scientific communication? I think Dr.
So
Nitin can
yeah,
help in that.
so I would like to just put up a quote by Hall, Rotter, and Rand, which says that medicine is an art whose
Yeah,
magic and creative ability have long been recognized as the residing in the interpersonal aspect of the patient and the doctor's communication relationship. It is the most trust and faith which are fast depleting. You can actually see leading to incidences of attacks and lawsuits against doctors community and the hospitals as well. So this trust of the patient and between the patient and the caregivers, or I mean patient caregivers and the doctors community or medical experts, and the therapy as a whole, therapy provider, it is the most critical aspect which has to be maintained, which has to be nurtured by the patient doctor relationship. So there has to be a huge impact which we can create. The pharmaceutical industry keeps on sharing a lot of interesting communication tools to these doctors to better communicate with their patient world. And they also have an option now to directly reach up to the patient. Of course,
right,
they have to be very, very subtle in giving some kind of information, because a patient has a access to a lot of information. Whenever patient nowadays come to a doctor has two major responsibilities. One is to there is so much of false communication or a wrong communication which has been carried up to the patient. It has to be negated. And the second is the patient has a lot of information about his own disease and whatever the medicines which are provided by doctor. So they ask a lot of questions. They ask a lot of questions about the therapies. So doctors today have to have a wealth of information, not only about the science, but also about the how to relate with the patient and
correct.
communicate the right knowledge to the patient. Again, the second most important aspect which I see in a country like India is doctor-patient ratio. It is so dismal that the doctors don't have time to actually help patient understand the nuances of the his own diseases. They are hard pressed. Let's look at. I was sitting along with a cancer expert in a Jaipur hospital. In a 40 minutes time, the gentleman saw 20 patients. I'm talking about cancer.
Mhm.
Okay, just imagine the plight of the patients as well as of the doctor. He had just no time. He was just seeing the palpation. He was just checking the patient's tumor, and he could. He was saying he was should decide whether the patient need to go for the further evaluation or the patient can go home. So I asked him, how do you manage that? How do you come to know that that tumor is a cancer or not? He said that's an experience, because these patients are so poor that it is very difficult for most of them won't be able to afford the diagnostic tools which we will be utilizing following this. So only the necessary cases or that's where the doctors are in dilemma. I believe that a doctor and patient relationship, if I want to go back to that, they have to, it is so critical that the treatment adherence and the
Mhm.
diagnostic accuracy both are very, very connected with the expertise of the doctor to communicate. It also delays the diagnostic delays, and it also reduces the time between the treatment and the patient comes to doctor and the treatment. There is a time difference that gets reduced with the help of the right communication. It also builds long
Exactly.
time trust, which is also very critical. That's what I believe. The
Right.
communication tools which are being utilized, there are multiple communication tools from the digital tool to the conventional tool. They are being utilized, and pharmaceutical industry is doing fantastic job, I believe, in providing these tools to doctors.
Very aptly said, Dr. Nitin. Why? Because in Indian scenario, any kind of specialty, the amount of patients seen by one doctor is quite high. Doctor patient ratio is one of the worst in all of the world. What is very the counseling part, checking part is worst. But the point is, if they are so equipped with the diagnosis currently from their experience standpoint, they are trying to take the decision on that context. But what is also which we needs to take care from the pharmaceutical industry perspective is how, as a partner to the healthcare, my communication to doctor becomes so agile, so flexible, and so dynamic in terms of that when I see even my LBL should be so focused that if I'm talking about certain disease, it has also show the problem statement from the standpoint, so that doctor also signifies this molecule stands for what and which point of patients, because that simplifies job actually. So there, I think a lot of things needs to be done. I think Mr. Amin would like to say something onto it. How in the current phase, these are some challenges we see and how we can rectify in that.
Thank you. I think I really, echo with Dr. Nitin, and my answer is based on that. That today doctors are so occupied, with the high patient ratio and the amount of load which they carry. Sometimes they are not having that enough time, maybe to really upgrade themselves. And I know that still a lot of them, they stretch themselves, and they study and they do it. But the challenge with it to me is the adoption. Okay, and I'm not if you just take example today, chat gpt, it takes 3 days to reach 100 million. If you take today Netflix, it takes 1 month to reach 1 million. If you take any other digital adoption, today it takes 1 month maximum to reach at the mass. Okay, but when it comes to
Healthcare,
treatment adoption, yeah, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to treatment adoption, a
very slow.
GDFT, the guideline directed medical therapy adoption takes maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Okay, and this is after 50,000 medical reps working in India. This is after a lot of CMEs happening every day evening. This is after every week one conference happening in some part of the country. This is after a lot of digital literature, communications, all this happening round the year. We still see that the recent ICMR data says that 110 million diabetics in the country. On the treatment, maybe only 10 million, 20 million, 30 million max. So that is a real challenge which we all are facing, not just pharmaceutical, not just doctors, but the healthcare overall. And I think whatever we do in this, it's less. The more you do is less, because all this is important, like Dr. Nitin mentioned. This all adds up to something. Your app, your communication, your
Correct.
people's literature, a small, everything adds up to something. But somewhere the leaking bucket, or the bucket which you need to pour, is it's so huge that it's always going to be less. So I think we should keep trying. We should keep engaging, create innovative communications, and I think we should involve the doctors more in our program, so we understand that what they are looking forward to. Because today they have 30 seconds, today they have 50 seconds for the reps. So I think they are the right people to tell us that what they would like to know, and accordingly we could craft our communication. And I see most of the companies doing that today.
Yeah.
They are somewhere redefining their communications. Those iPads are not working.
Yeah.
That
I
we
totally agree.
understand. Those literatures also not working. That also we know. So somewhere you keep evolving and keep reaching communications. I think the digital, even the apps, if you see the biggest app I know today in India, uh, it has 100,000 doctors on that app. The engagement would be hardly 10%. If you do
10%.
a email marketing campaign today, if you send email to 3 lakh doctors, the open rate is
CTL
only
is not
10%.
achieved.
Yeah, yeah, 15 to 20%. So, and the population is huge, right? The 50,000 doctors are passing out. A lot of that population is increasing. So somewhere I think uh, that bandwidth is required. And as if I think it's not just one. Just to summarize my talk before I hand it over to Mr. Dhillon, I think somewhere it is beyond now the doctors, pharma, and overall I think the government is also now focusing a lot. With all these three coming together, a lot of public-private partnership maybe. I think that can address this epidemics and the knowledge issues maybe in the future.
I think, yeah, it will take time because India market is quite complex, as even Mr. Dillon also mentioned. Uh, uh, how much our diversity talks about languages restrictions. Nobody can handle. Half of the India population don't know Hindi, don't know English. So regional language conversions, making sure that every single government schemes or the pharmaceutical aspects have been quite elaborately taken care from the customer standpoint, where they can understand in a very simplistic way. So I think, Mr. Dillon, what is your point of view into it? Because Amin was very much apt in terms of saying that currently we are doing it, but the right customers are still not taking it in a way that they have supposed to do it. So somewhere down the line, the deliverance to the patients still not been it's still not cultivating that what we are expecting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll take the key word from Dr. Nitin. It's a trust. The trust factor which is there, because the approach which pharma companies takes are so narrow.
Yeah.
They are not in broad. So they only talk about their own particular very narrow brand or a class of drug. Whereas when a doctor is facing the patient, and what Dr. Nitin said, he has to not only talk about the medicine, he has to talk about the entire treatment plan. What is the rationale behind him? Because patient has also read in the Google. So he has to convince the patient why is he choosing a particular therapy for this patient. What will happen? What will his plan be if there is a disease progression? How the patient should manage the side effect. Now, all these things are very critical, but no company will give tools to a doctor for so that he can use those tools in a more appropriate way, which will reduce his quality time with the patients. Now, what Mr. Amin said, that there's so many doctors in that platform, but what is there for them? If has any company given them any tool, any cheat sheets, any video which they can show to his patients, I'm sure the people will download. I myself get so many mails, but I will only open a mail where there is a white paper attached or a click to action which is there, which satisfies my area of interest
Right.
or need. So talking about again, there are tools. For example, patients when they are in the waiting area, companies can come up with some risk assessment scoring. So when the patient goes inside a doctor, already a risk assessment has been done either through digital means or through some assistant, which helps in bringing down his quality time inside a chamber with a doctor. Animated 3D videos, pre-recorded doctor videos on questions, FAQs. We all know a diabetes who has spent 20 years in his practice will know that these are the 50 questions which all patient asks. He can pre-record those questions and then say, okay, if you have any questions, go and see my YouTube video. And nowadays with AI technologies, those pre-recorded videos could be individualized, where like the way we get our happy birthday messages, by the name. So that could be pushed. So there are a lot of WhatsApp chatbots are there, nutritional apps, digital diaries, remote monitoring devices are also there. Patient need not, but no company is investing on those things. They're only talking about their own brand. Now imagine if there is a company which comes and gives a simple weighing scale which has a Bluetooth enabled weighing measurement, which takes the reading of the patient and it goes into the cloud, which where a doctor has an access. Now we all know that the first indication is change in our weight, whether he's a diabetic, pre-diabetic, anything. Any change in your BMI or weight is a predisposing factor for a non-communicable disease. Is there any company which is doing a campaign only on that? No, because everything is on ROI. These kind of, and this it's up to the government to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, but at the same time, what Mr. Amin said, it has to be hand-holded with the government. Government alone cannot do that. Companies should also participatively have associations and programs with government for such kind of activities. Then only I think there will be a behavioral shift. Otherwise, it will take a long time because pharma will think it is government job, government will think it is the pharma, and things will fall between the cracks. So there are tools which are available. There is an approach which could be done. I have yet not seen any pharma companies collaborating themselves which are in the same therapy area. There are so many companies in diabetes. Every company is doing their own awareness. Why can't they make a consortium of 10 companies, pool in on the resources, and do a diabetic awareness campaign? But no, same is the case with oncology. Every company in the month of October will do breast cancer awareness. Why can't 10 companies join hand together, get a third party, run a breast cancer awareness, and that third party can give some kind of a anonymized data back, how many patients got aware, what was the click to action, and blah, blah, blah. So that at least they know their efforts have been actually seen in the society. So there has to be a mind shift change at a senior level also. Unfortunately, that is not there.
That's the most elegant task, Mr. Dhillon, because industry work like that. I think we have seen even in international markets, some of the places there is a noble cause, yes, but there is some kind of mediator who works on that basis. But more importantly, what is very important is how patient centricity in all angle becomes a fulcrum, and in that also how a pharmaceutical industry provide right scientific communication. So if I see there are
So
some
just
important points.
sorry, Udit. Can I just make one comment? We have OPEC cartel. We have oil cartels. OPEC. We have association like OPPI, which are
Right.
a representation of the industry. Why cannot they bring together and say, okay, just contribute 2% of your budget in patient-centric awareness about diseases, and they can run that for the year. Every month they can dedicate to one particular disease. It is possible. The mind
I
shift
think,
is not.
yeah, I agree. Currently, OPPBI is in a very, I think, ventilator stage because all the multinationals are actually taking some very hard decisions in terms of operations in India. But nevertheless, it's a very noble cause, and it has some kind of mechanism which can be taken through from the government angle rather than from the pharmaceutical industry, because the government involved into it. Then there will be some kind of mechanism where there is a policing and also some kind of standardization is required. Then it becomes much better case. See, in breast cancer, we have seen vaccines. We have seen government has been very aggressive, but why not in any other disease also? So this is the way that health industry can be evolving, and then that will be very helpful. But apart from that, what I would like to see a relationship of a pharmaceutical rep and a doctor still becomes a very significant factor. Here, scientific communication. What can be a positive evaluation we can depict? Now, Mr. Amin, any point into it?
I guess this is definitely a evolving relationship, right? I think 20 years back, there were few companies, there were few therapies. I'm sure the dependency was very high on that individual or that person or that role. I think as the industry has evolved, as the companies have evolved, as the knowledge has now evolved, there are multiple platforms to grab knowledge and information. I think there is a
Mm.
constant challenge which we at pharmaceuticals, what we observe nowadays is that how we keep our team more relevant, how we keep them more updated, how we keep them more agile, how we keep them more informed. So then they can add value in each interactions they do with healthcare professionals. And I think there are pocket of excellence. There are areas of improvements. I think both exits parallelly. Okay, but one thing is for sure. I think eventually what we realized, and what I can say on behalf of the peer group also with we interact. I think this is a very solid relationship. See, ultimately, a doctor who is not working in hospital, he is a lone worker, right? He works alone. He has his own staff, right? He needs the partnerships. He needs partnerships from the healthcare companies. He needs partnerships
True.
from his ecosystem around them whom he meets. He needs partnership from his vendor or his suppliers, and of course the staff. Okay, so collectively I think everybody is looking for that. And uh, but the number is huge. The pharma companies now, earlier there were maybe 100 people were meeting. Today now one company has 20-30 divisions, so from one
Yeah.
company maybe 15-20 people are meeting, and there are collaboration issues, coordination issues. Those challenges also exist parallelly. So yeah, it's case to case basis, but that is I think that relationship is going to stay forever, and that's going to stay for long. The challenge is how effort that individual is putting and the company is also putting to stay more relevant, to stay more informed, to stay more updated, and add value to his interaction with HCP and add value to his patients also. And wherever you are successful in doing this, that makes a huge difference in your relationship. In that visit or in that doctor's clinic.
I
Fantastic.
I I
Yeah.
have a actually I have a very interesting what should I story to tell. I started my career as a medical representative. I'm talking about 30 years back, and at
Oh,
that time, the if the medical representative has good knowledge about his own organization, his own products, and the science, he was respected by the doctors community. Means I still remember the company called Sardia, which is one of the
still.
My
very
first
respected
company.
organization. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sardia. I'm very happy to tell you that Sardia representatives were highly respected by the doctors. Why? Because they used to carry real time research, which was not easily available for these doctors. Those were different times. Okay, but today the times have changed totally. The doctors have access to best of the knowledge. So knowledge
Right.
is not anymore the tool which you can utilize to I would not like to use the woo word, but to influence the doctor. So the job of medical representative has become very difficult today. I'll say 30 years back, and if I when I see the people working on the field now, the job has become very difficult because doctors first they are become super busy. They don't have time. The doctors of any sort will rarely give time to the medical representative. If at all they give, they meet only one or two people in a day. Or there are I just read about an somebody one of the institution in Delhi, they have given only 1 day to the medical representative to present, and only 10 people can meet. So just imagine the difficulty which they poor people are actually while they are visiting the doctors community. Doctors by themselves also have a lot of limitations because they have to first responsible towards their patient, and then they have to meet the medical representative. So I do not blame any of them, but still the situation is becoming more and more difficult. It is a job of a
Hmm.
pharmaceutical company product management team to make them more uh, capable. So the
Right.
skills, in addition to knowledge, the other skills, the soft skills have gained more importance, I believe.
Dr.
Just to
Nitin, one
add
more
to
point.
just to add to Dr. Nitin, it is no longer a knowledge game now. It's an
Correct.
insight game. It's an insight game. And how can a management help his MR is by giving them more insights about a particular doctor. Now, I'll just give you a simple example. We are the only industry where we have a privilege to meet our customer face to face. But to today's world, if I see Amazon will have more information about my preferences, or Google will know more about me, although I just met them virtually. The reason
Hmm.
is that, in spite of the fact that the reps, multiple reps from the company are meeting a same doctor, nobody is putting the communications into a platform where the insights could be generated. Now, for example, in GSK, same rep, same doctor is met by I think 10, 15 divisions. But
Right.
there is no single source of truth from where you can generate insights because 15 people, their managers, training managers, marketing managers would have felt. But what they feed in their daily call report is just the brand name or just that I met this doctor, he's happy or he's going to give me business. The qualitative description, which Serdia, or I remember in Serdia there was a page for every doctor and every call had a verbatim. Same is the case in Pharmacia where you used to write your interactions in words. It has to be a paragraph. And then through your rep, when your joint working happens, your manager used to go through that, and based on that, he used to give his comments. Now, in we have moved to all these iPads and other things. Imagine, same doctor, all top-notch doctors must have got 100 touch points in a year. But if you ask any company that can I get a summary of, or like the way we get a thread in tweet, what was the interactions, you will see it is all junk. If the reps are trained to put their daily call interactions in a more comprehensive way, where and it is diligently seen, you will get much more insights. There are companies now which are using machine learning and artificial intelligence to scan your digital footprints and give back your recommendations. For example, if I am today live on this platform and if I was a doctor, this information would go to the rep that so X doctor was on this platform and this was his topic of interest. So the
Hmm.
next time when a rep is going to beat me, he will first start his conversation. Doctor, I saw your deliberations or your webinar. It was so good. So you will definitely get 5 minutes extra than another other rep. But everybody is on the number game, and hence these all things takes a backstage.
I also want to add one more point to it. The morale of the medical representative have also gone down. And if the person does not have high morale, uh, it becomes very difficult to influence. He or she may not be able to execute the execute the you have already designed an excellent what should I say strategy, but it needs to be executed at that level where the actually medical representative doctor's communication is the execution point of your best strategies. If he is unable or she is unable to deliver in that time, you're failing. So it becomes very essential that only training of the medical, from medical point of view or the product point of view is not enough. That's what is the point.
Soft skills are very required. Very much required. I think very interesting discussion going on, because this is the most hottest part, because what is very important involving in part here is my customer interfaces because of my pharmaceutical sales team. And if they are not comfortable, if they are not acquainted, or if they are not equipped, my any kind of execution is going to be tossed up. So the point is how I make sure that right intervention at right time is being taken care of, because in pharmaceutical industry, any kind of digitization, any kind of AI system coming involving into it, the relationship between a industry and a doctor always been well perceived based on the interactions, and it will be always been a major fulcrum, and that is very much required into it. I think we have 10 minutes now. I think we should take some very important questions which we have received from the attendees. So one question which has come from Mr. Rajkaran: according to how practical can you actually involve the KOL in creating patient education content, since most of the patient's education content is just generic? Any inputs from your end? The person I would like to show how doctor involvement becomes very essential in generating some patient education standpoint, because they talks from the patient's angle and we talks from the idealistic situations. So how do you see this particular answers? I think Dr. Nitin, any viewpoint on
I
it?
uh, it's a question. Can you develop something new is always a question. Okay, but when you're talking about the disease management or information about a particular disease, let's take an example of diabetes, as Mr. Dhillon mentioned. Now, diabetes. What new can you talk about diabetes? Okay, so the same aspects are getting presented again and again in a patient education material.
Hmm.
The important thing is whether you can use different kind of tools. Is can a better tool, can AI be used, or can the 3D animation, can new technology can be utilized to educate the patient better? Okay, there are so many technologies which have come into play. So there is a technology which can make a 3D. There technology which patient can actually make. I read about a beautiful technology. Actually saw the technology. It is about a box where the patient can actually touch a particular organ, and the information about that organ comes in front of him, complete information. So such kind of tools will be of great value to the doctors as well as the patient community. And the patient will also value that institution which presents such kind of tools to educate him or her.
True, true.
I
Another,
agree with
So I'll
Rajkiran,
tell you,
and
and
yeah,
in Dr. Reddy's, we had a similar project, and we had some brainstorming. There are storybooks which are there. The way you have storybooks for kindergarten, and like what Dr. Nitin said, you press on a particular. There is a speaker. There's a talking book. You can say there's a talking book. You press it down, and then the pre-recorded message is with a cartoon which is presented in a picture is played. Now, this was in Africa for clinical trials where they were giving information or educating awareness among uneducated or very low educated people for clinical trials, and this was one from Pfizer. But similarly, same kind of a storyboard or tools could be used for patient information where you have some kind of a talking book or a storybook or a illustrative which people will like to read it, in a more casual manner, which is in a plain summary rather than high, information which is more scientific in nature.
I believe it was an augmented reality initiative, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
yeah. Mr. Mean was trying to say something.
yeah, no, I completely agree with Rajkiran because in my 14 years of marketing experience, I've always seen that when you design a patient education leaflet, there are hardly any repeat demand of that. That means it's not being used. But a lot of time, you see, and I'll not quote some doctor's name here, but there is one doctor in Delhi AIMS. He created a nice patient education for heart failure. There is one endocrinologist in Veera Road. He has created his own patient education for diabetes patients. So I think when they create their own stuff, they know what challenges they are facing, what questions patient come across, what confusions are there, and that really helps. At JB, recently we created one very interactive patient education material on how to check BP aptly, and that entire guidance came from the cardiologist. That what are the steps to check BP properly at home. And after COVID, a lot of patients are checking BP at home, so this is very important. So when it comes from them, I think you see a lot of value, and he's right that we should
Absolutely.
involve more and more
Because
because they are the
back
users,
then,
right? If they, yeah,
yeah, HCP endorsement, if there is, then nothing like it, because ultimately then it is a win-win situation. Another important perspective, I think Mr. Amin can really put this in front. As a medical rep, we are often asked to conduct the survey with doctors. And I've seen this survey conducted with my competitor brands also. My question is, does this survey help the brand manager? Do they change the marketing content based on this? Share your perspective. Very interesting. Pain
I
from
I
a
very
rep.
I very strongly believe in not just one survey. I believe in three
Uh,
surveys. And to be honest, I tell you that all these three survey helps. The first survey is at my team level, that from the marketing strategies and promotogram what things are working, because they know where they are getting good response, or thumbs up or thumbs down from the HCPs. So that is a very important survey. The second is definitely a very important survey is from healthcare professionals, because in your advisory board meeting, you meet selected doctors. When you go in the field, you meet selected doctors. But if your team members, if they come back with 10 or 15 doctors survey on a particular subject, on a portfolio expansion, or on a campaign, or on communication, I think that really helps in marketing to devise the future roadmap, etc. And the third very important point is, very recently what Mr. Dhillon mentioned, the patient insights are also very important. In
right.
India, we have not been able to devise that strongly, but we take a lot of time help from the partners. There are a lot of partner companies right now who provide patient support programs, and they can do survey at patients and at least get the insights and share with us that what are the patients pain points where we should work as a company. So I think all these three surveys very important. So you're not
And
wasting your
other
time with your it's
more
important.
than more than the survey, I have not seen where any marketeer has a advisory board with doctors where these strategies are first vetted with them. These are mostly in your own self-created world, top down from a senior management, or your best practices which you have probably done. But There are ad boards which are there for medical ad boards, but there is no marketing ad board. All you need is the five doctors to bring them and have a candid discussion with them that this is what I'm thinking. Before I ever give it a shape, tell me the plus and minuses of it. He will do a brainstorm with his own medical team member, which is
Hmm.
it's in the company, but that doesn't make, because it's a biased. Either he will agree or he will disagree. But when you go to a doctor, one part of the thing is that you do a not a survey but a ad board where you call them, tell them that these are A/B testing. No visual ad is done A/B testing. There is only one version which is approved by his marketing, and it goes. Why cannot have a A/B testing with the doctors for the visual aid or the communication or even a patient literature? That
So
whole
I
there
think
are three versions. Please pick up one which is the best, and then you go ahead.
so. I think Mr. Dillon rightly said. So some of the companies are very much uh, disciplined into these things. Some of the companies we have seen commercial adverts are very important before launching the brand plan in the market. There is also a very important point. A/B testing has been a very regular phenomena. Now, communication dipsticks in the big brands and other brands have been very much institutionalized. I've seen some multinationals, some Indian companies are also obeying it because that provides a lot of very important insights at what doctors actually sees from it or what actually doctors understand. There are a lot of new techniques from the AI bot is coming where they channelize that how heat markers helps you creating a communication in a much better way. So industry is evolving, but idea is that how many percentage of pharmaceutical industry companies are actually taking that into context. And another perspective, what even Dr. Nitin mentioned is how from pharmaceutical rep person, which is actually the very important fulcrum of overall all this particular chain, is very much well equipped. Otherwise, what happens is whatever you create, a word of absolutely heaven, but ultimately if it's not getting implemented properly, you won't get that heaven pleasures. So it's like that. So I think a fantastic discussion, a lot of important perspectives, factors we have taken care, some very genuine pain areas from the attendees have been encountered. I think I request a small final message from all of you to conclude the session. I think we can start from Dr. Nitin. Over to you, Doctor.
Okay, so I believe that as more and more patients have become more engaged
Right.
in their own healthcare, uh, not only the therapeutic point of view, they have more access to the information. They have come to expect more. They are they need personalized care, personalized attention that is tailored to their needs. So they every patient has their own needs and preferences. Now the healthcare system as a whole has to consider that aspect as well. So at the same time, the advances in the technologies such as mobile health applications, wearable devices, they have become so easily accessible now. They have made it easier for the patient to monitor their own health and communicate to the healthcare provider. I believe the distance between the patient and doctors is expanding. The patient is going away actually because of the digital healthcare. So the communication becomes more critical. Now the
Mm,
doctor may not be able to touch the patient in actual sense, and he
mm.
may have to take the decision based on the communication. So the verbal communication, the body language is become very critical, and that's what is the thought which I would leave behind.
Thanks, Dr. Nathan. Mr. Amin?
Thank you, Udit. Slightly longer message, but what I want to say that, friends, I really feel that I'm proud working in pharmaceutical companies because we are part of that industry which has improved the lifespan of Indian patients from 35 years to 70 years. Okay, I think in last 45 years, the Indian pharmaceutical companies have provided the world-class medicines to Indian patients and world-class knowledge and patient-centric programs to Indian doctors. So I think we should keep on doing it. I know that sometimes we always seen as a nexus, with doctors, or we are not seen in a we are seen as an industry who makes profit out of the disease or miseries of the patients. But having said that, I think we do a lot to country, we do a lot to patients, we do a lot towards doctor education also. And as a pharma marketeer and salespeople, we should keep on doing it. As I already said, whatever more we do is less because the burden of disease in India is huge. The communicable disease burden is huge, and my only request to entire audience who's listening to me is that if you are allowed to take two levers in your marketing strategies and marketing plans, I would say please keep one lever of patient centricity and one lever of knowledge centric relationship and communication with doctors. I think those two should be the pillar of your marketing plans, and that will not just help in building your brands, not just help in helping patients, but I think it will largely help the nation also in fighting communicable disease and non-communicable disease. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amin. Mr. Dhillon?
Well, thanks, Odit. If you ask me, I am a person who gets intrigued by data. But what I would suggest marketeer is to deep dive and don't see data per se, but get insights out of those data and
Mhm.
refurbish that into a tool
Actually,
or as a armamentarium for your reps. Give them
exactly.
back all the insights, because then only they will be able to communicate the right message to the right doctor. So, insight generation in terms of how the therapy is shaping, what are the pain points of the patients, what is the latest, what is the competitive environment happening, what is the futuristic things happening. All these things should be fed to the rep. And that is the reason why, because his morale is going down, because he is left all alone, and he only gets interaction with his team once in a quarter, and rest of
True.
one a third of the quarter, 3 months, all he has is carrying the baggage of the targets. So I feel that the more insights which a company at a head office level can do, those people, because they have all the tools, they should churn that information, churn that insights, and package it back as a tool for
Hmm.
his reps to go and meet and interact with his doctors. Because there is a limitation in terms of what he can talk about a product, but he can talk a lot about when it comes to therapy, lot about it comes to treatment, side effects, and so on and so forth.
100% agree. Thank you so much, everyone, for such a fantastic discussion. Great learnings, I think, for the attendees. Even some of the good, important observations I have taken for my action plans and my course of the work. Wonderful discussion once again, and I really thank GAPSULE team and the TalkMore team for arranging this important session, because it will really build the confidence amongst the sales team also, that the kind of work even marketing team does in spite of all challenges. And also we are ensuring that whatever we deliver to you, you make sure that you use it in a very qualitative way to make, and there is a very healthy relationship between the pharmaceutical rep and the doctor's end, so that patient centricity always be center in focus. And thank you so much, I think, for the day, and have a nice weekend, all of you. Looking forward to connect to you in future. Thank you.
Thank you.